Yo, 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 what's up? Good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time it is where you're at. And welcome to Oya Dímelo Cinema Club.
Hey, ay.
Wow, music from Jason and Steve. Uh, this is me. I'm JP, and right now we're with Naomi, with Dino, Steve, and Jason. And this week's film that we are discussing is Sorry to Bother You. It is the directorial debut of Boots Riley, who is a musician. I think this was his first directorial debut, his first film. He's made album. I think he made an album named "Sorry to Bother You" prior to this film. There's also a book written before this film, and we went ahead and watched it. And I'm gonna say the reason why I picked this for our film discussion was when it first came out, I actually kind of ignored it. I didn't feel like wanting to see it. I remember the trailer. The trailer, I think, was the scene in which you see the garage setting where I think Lakefield's character, who's Cashian, is that his name?
Cassius.
Cassius Green. Character Cassius Green's in the garage where he lives with his uncle, played by Terry Crews. That's the only thing I could remember from the trailer, and I wasn't really wowed by it. So at the time, I didn't want to go see it. But then afterwards, I heard like a lot of people was like, no, this film is actually definitely a watch. And my partner really wanted to see this film, so I decided, let me watch something new because I've never seen it before. This is my first viewing of it, and my first thoughts, it's out there. It is definitely out there. You kind of get the feel that this is probably someone not not an experienced filmmaker. I mean, he is an experienced filmmaker, but this is his first big movie. It's very experimental. There's a lot of practical in this film. It almost feels like something not of this decade. For some reason I kept on thinking of like, well, actually, let's save that for later. I don't want to start off too much with spoilers, but that was basically my first impression of the movie. And if anyone wants to chime in, what was your guys' first thoughts?
Well, I like to say thank you, JP, for selecting this movie because when it came out, I didn't really have a whole lot of people to talk to about it, and so
Yeah,
I kept trying to find people to like, hey, let's talk about this movie.
it didn't
There's
help that
just a
I believe
lot
it
to.
was it was a limited release. I think
It was a
like
limited
not that
release.
many theaters decided to play it.
Yeah, and it was everybody I spoke to. It was well received, very strange, and not everybody knew how to receive it. You know, and it's just a lot to unpack. So I'm grateful today that you chose this movie for us to unpack. There's a lot. I'm not going to get into any specifics because I'm sure like we'll start to like pull the veil back a little bit. But honestly, I don't even know if we'll be able to pull the whole veil back. But I'm really interested in getting everybody's take on it because I know there's things I missed in this thing. I know I probably have very different opinions than a lot of other people too. And it's also one of those movies that you'll watch and you'll probably take something different from it based on your experience. I don't think there's maybe one way to look at this movie, which kind of goes to how well a first time director put the movie together. One of the most glaring things that I will say, and then we can move on and somebody else can speak, is how well the script is written for a first time effort. Because he wrote this movie too, am I
Yeah,
correct?
I
there's
think so.
there's a lot of layered textured detail in this movie, and it's so deliberate, and there's so many like symbols just in the text. You know what I mean? Not just like the visual image, but in the text, there's a lot of like dropping like if you don't know some of the stuff, like some of the little inside things I won't say inside, but some of the historical references, it'll just go right over your head. And I
Yeah.
caught a lot of them, so I know there had to be a ton more that I did miss. So I'm looking forward to hear everybody's perspective. That's
Cool.
all.
So, hi. Sorry to Bother You is one of those films that you question, like, what the heck did I just watch? And I was curious to know who directed it. And as you mentioned, it was his first film. And it's just amusing to me, like, how I read this early, like a day ago, where he had to introduce this to the producers. So can you imagine being like a hip hop artist, a rapper, whatever, and having to introduce this to the public or to investors or however screenwriting or whatever, how it works. Just like, what are you trying to bring into the screen? What are you trying to say? What was funny to me is that white voice he talked about, and I'm sure we all done it or heard someone talk in their white voice, all sincere and like, you know, I'm sure most of us use it. I've used it before, and I for sure don't use it when I'm in the office or any fancy place, because I for sure know I won't get away with it here in the hood or whatever. But like, I enjoyed how quirky this movie is. I like any movie that's brought up in another alternative reality, but it's still similar to ours. And a lot of hidden messages, especially with the girl in the earrings. They're like right in your face messages. And they're like bold and out there, and it's very curious. And it was an original film in my outtake, but in general, like, thumbs up. It's his first take, like, in creating a film, and he's a very talented artist. That's
agreed.
I really enjoyed it. It's one that I don't know why I missed it, because Jason and I for a while were watching the same movies almost at the same time. I just finished watching it a couple hours ago. I actually my aunt, my cousin, and his wife watched it with me, so it was
interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. My 67-year-old aunt. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I just kind of, there's one thing my cousin said that I'll bring up later, but kind of what I liked of it was, like, on its own, it can just be a goofy, wacky, trippy comedy, right? It's just like, you have Steven Yeun, I think is his, like when they have the strike and then he goes off on STIs and like chlamydia, and everyone's just like stops, and then he's just like, fuck Rigo you or whatever, and then everyone, it's like it had so many goofy moments, or just like, does this have anything to do with anything in the movie other than it, you know, like, it had so many different layers also. So I really enjoy a movie that you can watch and just have a really good time, and just like, this is so, you know, this is so funny, this is so trippy, what is going on? But if you really want to get into it, you can start unpacking it, and it has so many different, like, themes and layers, and every character, like, you could spend so much time on pretty much each character and what, you know, that means. And then I was just thinking of, like, when the movie came out versus watching it now, and it's just has a completely different meaning, right? Seeing it now. I know, Jason, you watched it again, or did you just go with it? So
I watched it again, yeah.
Yeah, so I would be interested in that once we get into it more, just seeing it as a second time. What did you notice, or during our current social political time, what, you know? But I really enjoyed the movie. I just thought there was so much to it that I loved every moment, even like the kind of, like, you know, like, this seems like a very first draft or very first directorial, like, I loved it all. I just, like, it just was part of the sauce. I ate it all up. I just ate it all up. I snorted it all up without any problem. So
I drink it up.
That was my, I guess, initial
Mr.
take.
Bobo.
Chill.
So my take, I absolutely love this movie. I think it's an incredible masterpiece of a movie that's very ahead of its time. I love watching movies that when they were made, they were still very, like, kind of futuristic. That's why, like, my first pick was Back to the Future. It's a movie that was, like, made such a long time ago, but it still holds up after all these years. And I feel like this movie It's literally a movie that you can watch 30 years from now, and it will still have like things you can like unpack out of it and kind of analyze. Because this was honestly, this was my second time watching this movie. The first time I watched it, it was like a blur. Like I honestly don't even remember watching it, to be completely honest with you. But this time I was like, oh my God, this movie got like so much, like every little moment. And it never felt like the movie was like too long or they took too much time on this particular scene or none of that. At least to me, it just felt like I was just going through it, you know? And at the same time, I was getting so much character development from like everybody. And that's something that I enjoy about a movie, that, you know, I enjoy my movie that are focused on one or two characters, but I love watching other characters progress at the same time. And to do that in a film is a massive achievement on my point of view, because some series are series and they can't achieve that. So to do it in just one film and to have so many nuances from like, I mean, the way they did the calls, that the dude was like right there, right in front, and the whole thing was sync or whatever. Just like watching little elements like that, like it made me kind of be like, yeah, that's what filmmaking is about. It's like about doing different things. Because at first I was coming with a vibe like this is gonna be like Wolf of Wall Street, but honestly, yeah, it has like similar things with the telemarketing and with the Wall Street stuff, but at the same time, they're so complete different movies and they stand alone by themselves. That's what was my real joy about watching this movie in general. So those were my first impressions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we're not gonna like, I don't know how I can go through the rest of the talk without having to give away spoilers. So, spoiler alert. Like, it's so weird because when the first few moments of the film, I honestly thought it was gonna be very one note. Like it was just basically, even from the trailer, like I thought it was, oh, it's basically about code switching. It's about people like who they really are versus like how they want to present themselves to other folk, or how it was the proper way of presenting. But this, it goes way beyond that, especially with the whole like discovering what layers there are to the bigger narrative, especially when it came to the telemarketing. There's the grunts at the bottom, you know, him where they start off. Then there were the power callers, and then you find out that they're all in league with this big organization called what was it? The
Worry Free.
Worry free.
Wait, what? Worry Free, which is basically like even you see the commercial for Worry Free, like okay, it's a prison. And it's like it's prison labor. That's what Worry Free is.
But it's so much more than even that.
Right, and it's crazy. And I guess because it was so weird, because like I expected so little just from the trailer. So when you find out like all these different things that come to play, I guess that's why I want to kind of talk you more into detail with you guys, like, because it just keeps on adding up. And like I started getting lost in the film because you have to accept the absurdity that is the film, and it does not, there's no breaks on it. If anything, it goes from a fucking 1 to 100 by the second to third act. So yeah, how about you guys? Did you guys try to keep on to the rails during this freaking roller coaster ride?
I have to rewind a couple times, like what the hell did I just watch or miss? And then I missed like this whole scene, and then I'm like, wait, what happened before that? So I had to rewatch play, and I found it hilarious when, spoiler alert, my bad, when he like finds this whole white voice thing, and he just like takes that key and like ignites his whole different lifestyle. I found it that was like, I found it hilarious that it was the staple of the whole movie, but yet there was still more that was happening. Yeah. So the white boys really, really got to me.
I just thinking about it now. So, I mean, I'm sure most of us have had these corporate jobs or whatever where they make you watch these videos on like how to better, interact with customers. But I can just think that somebody worked at a call center and their boss or someone, you know, you just have to talk to them like you're right there in front of there. You're in their living room talking, you know, like stuff that's small and minute, because then when you see it, you know, it's right there. I had a good friend, a roommate, who had a call center job, and like he just talked about how it was hell. The fact that if you wanted to get up and go to the bathroom, like it would log you off. So you only got paid when you were logged into the computer. So like if you went to the bathroom, like you were logged off. There ended up being a huge lawsuit about it, but so he would find ways of how to like, not like hack, but like keep the window open, but have something else on the computer so that he could like go to the bathroom and still be logged in. You know, you got to take a shit during company time, right? That's just like, you find ways of doing it. So just as I'm watching it, I'm just remembering all the stories of my buddy, my roommate who used to work in a call center, and just like how horrible it was, and just like the whole idea of like you got to follow a script, which I even that was the other thing. It's like I applied, I got interviewed for that job because they were looking for bilingual people, and so like I went, I did like a whole interview, I did the whole Spanish thing, so I'm looking there, and it's like again you feel like they're just like, oh, we're just looking for whoever, and I'm just sitting there. It's like I didn't get the job. Like I was like I couldn't get a freaking job at a call center, being bilingual and everything. So I was definitely a lot of stuff came back that sorry, I went on a little I had a little PTSD there.
It looked like it,
yeah. Which kind of he felt like it, like he would, especially early on, he kept spacing out, and like half the time in the movie I was like, is Tessa even real? Like, is she even like I just thought like he was so paranoid. He was talking about the sun and it's gonna explode. I'm like,
the girlfriend.
The girlfriend, Detroit. Which it's funny. Like, oh, I thought it was funny because she was like, oh, they wanted me to have an American name, but the word Detroit is not American at all, right?
It's
so
French.
Just that idea, Detroit. It's just like I don't know. I just love that.
I thought about that too.
Yeah,
I thought about that too.
So American because it's a city in the nation.
Which
That's how American.
like he has to know that, right? But
well,
also Detroit is quintessentially American.
Correct.
But you know what that happened is because they know our timeline that we just came from Paris, Texas, so it's the best way to kind of put it together. You know what I'm saying? They watch the Cinema Club.
Alternate
Part of our
reality.
extended universe.
This is all one universe, right? All the movies we watch are one universe.
Right.
Anyway, so I'll let someone else take the baton right there. But I just the Detroit, like being American,
Boots Riley is actually an activist. I think he wanted to address this whole like telemarketing lifestyle into this movie, which was, I mean, many people in the nation work in telemarketing. I know I get a lot of calls, like, leave me the fuck alone. But I'm glad he addressed certain things like coltan with this chick, Detroit, now that we're mentioning her. Like, have you guys Googled coltan? That shit is a trip.
What is coltan?
Okay, so y'all saw that when she was in her stage presence, she had cell phones thrown at her. So coltan is this mineral that's found in our cell phones.
Oh,
yes.
They can, gather electricity. They can hold electricity, and that's
it almost comes exclusively from Africa.
And comes from Africa. There's a lot of exploitation in it. There's a lot of children and women being like exploited in the society over there in the Congo. So, and this is just like a topic I recently searched, and then once I saw it in the movie, I'm like, whoa, it's like the universe is talking to me. So thank you, JP.
Isn't that crazy how the Congo is like not one of the richest countries on earth, and they provide a resource that literally everyone on earth needs now, and they still are like a third world country? Like, how is that even possible? But
I don't know if it's from I'm sure it's Congo also, but it's in Africa where they get mica, basically for any sort of touch screen for any phone, right? Like that all comes from there as well, right? So much of, I mean, this is Amazon, right? I think it's not just call centers. It's like San Francisco. It's people that can't live in the city but have to commute there. I mean, what other movie do they go and show, like a comedy, if you will, goes and like drives through tent villages, right? Like there's so many different layers to this. Or even in LA, right? The very few times do you see someone like, you know what? Let's show this. Let's have this as a landscape of this movie or the backdrop, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even we don't mention it. We'll just show it. We'll show it a few times. And hopefully it being in your subconscious, then you can, you know, maybe it will open up. Yeah.
It plants the seed for people to research and search it up and just be aware. So I'm kind of glad this was in there and involved. Made me research even more about it, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's going to go off trail to the movie.
Well, then the whole performance art of Detroit thing, like that kind of gave me PTSD from like all my like people that have done, that I have friends or other people that have done performance arts, or just
Cassius
like
stepped up though. He was like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, why? So I kind of give it up to him. He was like, don't do this. But she was like, get away. Let me be an artist.
So wow, I mean there's a lot, but I'll start like closer to the beginning if I can. Like that worry-free situation that they had where everybody's like living, you know, at the, like you say, is a prison industrial complex, but it's also slavery. Now, because I had the luxury, like a few of us, to watch this movie a couple times, I noticed more than I would have noticed the first time, because the first time everything's being thrown at you and there's so many things to process. I've noticed small little things, like when they're in the bar and he's getting ready to talk to Danny Glover, and he's telling them about, you know, life in general and whatnot, and they're drinking. There's a newspaper article, and the front of the headline says, Congress decides that, you know, worry-free isn't slavery after all, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, great, because that's what it obviously was. So like, it's just showing you like, it clearly is slavery, and Congress is in on it because big business has, you know, lobbied Congress to say like, you know, this isn't slavery.
Mm.
There's something else that you had said, Naomi, that I wanted to touch on. I forget what it is now, but Dino, you talked about how like there's so many different social things going on, which makes sense because he is an activist. I also like another small thing that I caught was the what's her name? Diane, the woman who was kind of like the assistant in the office.
Yeah.
Debauchery.
Yeah, like her name was Debo Cherry. Diane Debo Cherry. It's like, that's just debauchery, right? But it's like, as you write a script, how do you even think of that? Like, I feel like as an artist, he's just collecting jokes and things throughout his whole life, and he's like just finding places to place them, because that's what it felt like. But all that's so awesome, man. And modern day slavery is a real thing. Like, you know, a lot of people in the world don't understand that slavery is like full on slavery is still happening right now. And, you know, there's not like a lot that can really be done about it until like we know all the details, you know what I mean? And know how to like liberate people, because like there's people who straight up need real liberation right now, real slavery. And we just don't talk about it. Like I was reading an article a couple years ago that talked about real slavery in America. Like there's real slavery in Utah. Like there's a small city in Utah that has like all these women as their slaves, and nobody talks about it. Like actual slavery, you know, and nobody talks about it. It's but this movie kind of like, you know, touches on as much stuff as it possibly can. And I really appreciate that. Another small thing is the names in the movie. Like names are so important in a movie. And like, as a writer, I always think about, well, what could this character's name be? Like I almost think of names last, but his names are so clever. Like Cassius Green, like green as in money and green as in new and doesn't know a whole lot, but also Cassius like Cassius Clay before he becomes Muhammad Ali. You know what I mean? So that's like his slave name, sort of, right? The name that was given to him instead of like who he truly is. He hasn't found who he truly is yet. Detroit, obviously. And then Steve Lift, the CEO. Like, he has like that kind of like con man grifter last name. You know what I mean? Like Lift,
Yeah.
Trump. Like they always have like this name to make themselves seem like they're important and
It's
big.
gotta
and,
be
you
a
know,
verb.
yes,
Gotta be a
like,
verb.
it's got to be a verb and like status orientated. And one other thing that I thought was funny, but this time I took pretty serious, was that game show. The
Oh,
kick him in the face or whatever that was. Like, it's so bizarre because really he's making a statement on the culture of things that we watch, right? Because like we watch some stupid shows and it hasn't changed. It's still going on. We're still watching like really like shows where people get hurt. You know what I mean? Like Wipeout and you know
The
all
Price
of
is
them.
Right.
The Price is Right. Like
Hold
we're just watching like terrible TV that just makes us dumber. And Danny Glover says a very important thing. Like, I love the show, and basically he loves the show because it's people that he's doing better than.
Yeah.
And that's what that TV is always about. Like somebody who was a courtroom TV show producer once told me that the reason that these shows work and the reason there's so many of them is because Americans, you know, if they're at home or whatever, most of them have like been laid off because those shows come on like at 11 o'clock at noon, you know what I mean? Or they're in a waiting room, like waiting for like the results, or their car is broke down or something like that. And the reason that people watch those shows is because here's somebody in front of me who my life is clearly better than. Like, my life sucks today, but it's better than that guy. You know what I mean? And that's why people like to see people get hurt and beat up on TV and get their feelings hurt and divorce court and all that nonsense. Yeah, but I could just sit here and unpack all day. So I'm gonna let us move on to like the next person or the next actor or whatever.
Yeah. Did you say anything, Des? Or
I mean, it's a lot being said, you know what I'm saying? We can talk all day about things. But yeah, man, I mean, this is like skipping so fucking ahead because it's just like I'm jumping, you know, like things that happened before, things that happen in the middle, things that happen in the future. But I kind of want to jump like super ahead on this one, and because this is another theme that came on a previous movie, The Great Dictator, and I brought it up, and it came about in this movie again. Because now, before when you used to kind of like listen to rumors about things that would happen in the world, and we didn't have this type of connectivity that we have today with the internet. And you will just go like, yeah, maybe it's real, maybe it's not, you know, it's a rumor. But now there's a lot of things that I'm like, that's real, you know? Like now they're talking about aliens. That's real, you know, like, there's a lot of things. So for me is the human experimentation. So that's the thing that like, it's crazy intriguing to me because that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I literally heard of something that I heard as a kid. As a kid, when I was super Catholic and all that stuff, there were all these old people talking all these crazy nonsense to me. Going, the world is going to end when this happens and this happens and this happens. And I'm like, shut up, you crazy old person.
Was it horse penis?
No, not horse penis, but someone told me when I was younger, and I literally took this like, that's not going to happen. But it's actually happening. I heard that it's happening. They're putting chips on people.
Yeah.
So I heard like there's now like some company, I don't know where in the world specifically, but they're putting chips on people on their waist, and essentially that's where their wallet is. And that's how people know how currency is kind of being traveled.
It's either Switzerland or Sweden.
Yeah, something like that. And basically,
I thought it was just on the wrist, not the waist. And
I
so
heard
people could, and it was not just for money, but also like a fob key. So like you don't have to get your keys out; you can just, you know, to your wrist. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and it's just crazy that there's so many kinds of experimentation. So here that they're just like, hey, how can we make our workers more durable, more efficient, and less whiny? Let's make them horse people.
Right.
But how are we going to sell them that they could be horse people? Let's just say you're going to have a horse dick. That's how we're going to sell you.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because now that makes me think, and because I kept wondering, like, I got some of the symbols with the earrings that she was wearing, but she's wearing a penis earring at one point. And the penis, obviously, now that I think about it, represents power and envy and all these different things. And so it's like, yeah, have a horse dick because the penis is power. And like, that totally makes sense now. Like, that's what he's trying to say with that.
It wasn't this week, but the week before, John Oliver did a whole thing about Wiccan, I think is the one religion in China that they have I believe a Muslim background, and they're basically being put into concentration camps and in living facilities, and they're being pushed as just like, oh, you have a life, like you live here, you eat, you blah blah blah.
Build a society.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I thought of when it was like worry-free thing. It's like, what, and even the uncle, Terry, which by the way, that little fro he had going just like killed me. But just the idea like, oh, worry-free doesn't sound so bad. Yeah. It's like you have a lifetime contract, you have food, and you have a place to stay. Like,
I love that they sold you on it. Like, at first, you're like, you were sold. Like, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
No, I was talking about Terry's character, not like me, not like Dino. I need to see a little more zeros, right? I need to see a little more like Cassius Green, like.
Bro,
okay,
a lifetime contract though.
Yeah, like holy shit.
Like, and imagine like the whole thing is like, that's one less headache. Right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But it made me think of what's going on in China and what's gone on throughout history with different groups. What we can see in Central America and other places where it's these farmers that have to, the coffee beans. Like, if you look at how all that is broken down, and it sounds so great, and it sounds so, what is it? It's not respectful farming. They have another name to it, but like everything has like this little shine on it. Like,
is it compassion farming or something like that?
I can't remember right now exactly. But they're able to find certain words or stuff like that makes it sound better. But if you look at it, it's the new form of slavery, right? It's the new form of this. And what's going on in China, they've gotten in touch with Nike and like all these other companies that, these basically concentration camps or whatever, where the Wiccan people are being forced to work. Yeah. And they're just kind of like, oh, we don't know. But throughout the whole movie, they're showing like Congress accepts that. Or when the video of the horse thing goes crazy, Congress is, like
they don't care.
The market goes up like, what?
Yeah.
Like really strong people? That's great. We'll make more, we'll continually make more work and it'll take less money, right?
And they even have, I think, competitors to work free for a little bit where, like, in one of the talks that Green has, Cassius, I think he's talking to a possible Japanese investor. Yeah. Right, like, oh well, those labor camps, whatever. But if you work with our labor camp, so it's even like just setting up that like this film has a lot.
It's like what I don't know. It might have been in one of the tutorial videos or whatever that they show, but it was like, we make cars for the amount that you would make a bicycle. Like just like that idea, right? Yeah. Like it's like, oh yeah, a bicycle seems fairly simple. And you can make a car for what you would spend to build a bicycle, right?
That was pretty cool claymation, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's actually talk about that next, because everything visually seems very practical. I can't recall ever a moment where something felt like it was CGI or like something of that sort, like something very high tech. Even the way that the colors pops on the set is pretty just basic, like it's so colorful. The characters are colorful, and their settings and their personal settings is very colorful. But at the workplace, it's kind of dull, very almost grayish blue. Not that many colors are popping except for maybe the orange lights where if they make a sale pops up. And then once you get to the power colors, like you're almost at an Apple store. Some of these offices look like that. And then Steve Lift's mansion is basically what you think that some Silicon Valley asshole, like how their mansion looks like. And every special effect was basically just practical down to the pitch video. It's all straight up claymation. And then even the special effects where they use the equestrian people, like that's real. Like that looks real. So something out of like, I don't know, like a 1950s B movie and stuff like that. Very, very much invasion of the body snatchers type of thing going on. So I guess that's what I want to talk to you guys about. Like, what you guys thought about the visuals that this film had?
I enjoyed that. It felt, I don't want to say the word low budget because it's not low budget, but it feels like a practical budget. But also like I love that the horses weren't CGI and they went like, you know, with makeup and, you know, a suit, I guess, or claymation or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like I love that they kind of went old school. I often think about that. You know, like in the 1980s, you had all those movies like Gremlins and, you know, Ghoulies and, you know, all these little monster flicks where like the monsters were puppets and, you know, costumes and stuff. And it's like, that doesn't have to die. Like, we don't have to have CGI for everything because the CGI, we know the CGI isn't real and it just takes your belief right out of the thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's something cool about, even though like we know it's fake, a costume, but there's something about like someone making a costume that looks kind of real that's still scary. You know what I mean? And I dig that. I dig, like you said, I dig the way it was shot too. There was a lot of clever shots and there's a lot of really clever transitions. I always try to pay attention to how a movie does transitions because a lot of times I feel like movies kind of struggle with transitions just by going to like a black fade out or whatever. But you could tell like a director is really going auteur mode when he's like concerned with the transitions. Like, let me do a clever transition to keep this movie, because that's the flow of the movie, right? That's why the movie doesn't let up to us either, because the transitions are so smooth. It just kind of like wacky and quirkily goes to the next scene. Those are some things that I noticed.
It was disturbing. The horse people were disturbing because it had that level of like, okay, this is clearly not CGI, but it definitely, even before then, it reminded me of A Clockwork Orange. I don't know. I just in the idea of like this somewhat futuristic world, that you know, like it could be real, it could be a little in the future, it could be now. So throughout the movie, kind of like the editing, all that, the way the music and the lights were played, it really reminded me of A Clockwork Orange or those type of Kubrick, you know, kind of mind type of whirling movies. But yeah, the horse stuff was just, it did its job. There was a huge article about it, part of it being Baby Yoda, right? And why, for maybe it's our age group and stuff like that, we're way more attuned, or just like, oh, finally, this looks real. It might not look 100% real, but I know I can touch it. Yes. Whereas CGI, I cannot touch that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that adds a whole different level. And with the movie, it really worked. It was so bizarre, so freaky, right? And throughout the whole movie, even like him was he covered in shit in that show? I think like just to go real, like the amount of stuff, like literally had to be covered in shit to try and show like this shady, whether it's Walmart or Amazon or whatever, like creating mutants, usually without people's consent. Just to show that he had to be beat up and then like dropped in a vat of shit or whatever, right? Like, yeah, the visuals were very well done, from the realistic to the absurd and the campy. And I thought it was a really good balance.
Yeah, the visuals. Again, I agree. Pretty much everything you guys have said thus far. That the visuals were pretty on point. Yeah, the horses were disturbing, especially when you see the size of their dick. Uh, and yeah, and I honestly I don't necessarily give, I guess, the props it deserves in movies about this, but in this movie it stood out for me, so I have to give it up for the makeup and hair department in this movie, because they made that one girl look flawless in every single scene.
Oh, Detroit, she had a different wardrobe every time.
Bro,
I wish I
every
had
time.
a quirky girlfriend named Detroit. Goodness gracious.
Hey,
I guess I do sort of have a quirky girlfriend named Detroit. I'm literally in her.
Yeah, you're staying with her right now, right?
Yes. Literally.
She's staying with you and Bruce Lee.
That's I guess if we're still talking about visuals, did you guys notice like how at the mansion party, the boss's mansion party, like it looked like a villain's house, like it looked like a bad guy's lair, like, and they didn't use a lot of money to make it look like a bad guy's lair. Like all the backgrounds are red, the lighting on him is green. Like every time the boss talks, there's like kind of a light behind him, like a purple sort of light, like all the villain colors, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Green,
for
purple,
sure.
and red. And it's like, it looks like a bad guy's lair. And, you know, to make a bad guy's lair, you think that you would need like a certain amount of money and whatever. They did it with light.
Yeah. Well, and then it's so silly. The doors are painted, like it's his wood framing, the hallway, all that. And then the doors are just these bright paints that are flat, just flat paint, right?
Yeah.
Just it being so serious, everything, and a simple joke of like, it's the jade door, not the, you know, like just the shade, like that stuff that like.
A straight man will not know the difference between olive and jade. So
right.
Somewhere.
That's like a Tarantino thing, like just the vocab, you know, like the smartness of just like, oh, it's that color. Oh no, it's that, you know, like stuff like that kept popping up that I just there's another. Yeah, so again, like there's some horrendous shit happening, and it's like, I told you the J door. It's like, clearly that's, you know, it's like, wait, you just saw this naked half horse, half man, and now we're just going to be doing a silly joke about what color the door is, right?
They didn't really hide how, even before we even saw the equestrian people, like as soon as he entered into the olive door and you saw all this weird, almost industrial looking setting, a hospital looking setting, like they didn't hide the fact that some shit's about to go down. And you just gotta accept it. It's like, this movie's so out there. It's like, once it fucking happens, like, are you that surprised that it fucking went there?
I thought it looked like community showers, and I thought it was like, oh, this is a gas chamber. Like this is
so did I.
When he was walking there, I was like, oh, this looks like old school showers. And I was like, get out of there. That's my, you know, just because they were all lived together and stuff like that. I'm like, uh-oh, you don't want to go in this community
But all
shower.
that is in the boss's house.
Yeah.
Like he lives there.
All right, I'll bring one thing up that my unless somebody wants to talk more about the horses and visual.
Anybody want to talk any more about these horses' dicks?
Oh, and then again, the joke being like he goes to the doctor to show the penis and then goes to Detroit, and she's like, why don't you just ask me to look at your nostrils? Like, why is the first thing you gotta say is like, is my dick any bigger? Like,
and at the end of the movie, it's actually his nose that changes first.
Yeah. Anyway, so what my cousin brought up, or what he pointed out, was the bandage, the white bandage, and the meaning of that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting, because when he kind of takes charge of his life again, or decides to come clean and he takes the bandage off. right? So like him being a scab or passing the ride, he gets banged up, and then he puts a white bandage over him.
That's interesting.
And and throughout there, it's almost like now I'm adding stuff, but it's almost like he's trying to bleed out from underneath, but there's this kind of trying to keep a pristine whiteness, if you will. And it's not until he like takes it off that he is like back to his regular voice. Anyway, that's after
the bandage is interesting, and I knew it meant something. It just nothing came to mind, but the fact that he's a scab and he crossed these picket lines, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, he's wounded, I guess, right?
And he and his bosses, like, they keep on wiping out the blood that keeps coming off of him. Like, I think he starts to bleed every time he like second doubts or like kind of thinks over what he's doing, and they always just like, no, that's fine. Then they just wipe his blood away. So that could also be part of the whole, like, him trying to be pure in his situation and whatnot.
What was the name of his marketing wig thing? Bitch Cola something?
What was that? Like all of it. Drink a cola, bitch, or I don't know what
it's like drink a cola, smile, bitch, or something like that.
Yeah,
That was wrong in so many ways. Oh my God, they made a parody out of that.
Yeah,
That for me.
I think that's more like cultural appropriation type of thing. Like something that like the kind of like the public does, you know, how they like appropriate like Indian culture and stuff like that.
Or them making him rap at the party.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that one.
Oh,
That grinded my gears so hard. I'm like, what the fuck?
That was so embarrassing.
Let's make a little side note here and talk about this rap at this party. JP.
No, Naomi was gonna say something like.
Oh no, I just said it grinded my gears.
No, it was triggering because like that shit. I'm sure everyone who's like, who has this like who's had friends of that sort, they've been asked shit like that before, you know, like I was like visiting some like how do I phrase this, like some like one of my friends family members, he's predominantly white, his family was also white. They're like, oh, you're Mexican or whatever, and so like, and they knew that I was a comedian, they knew that I was an artist. Like can you say any Mexican jokes, any Mexican songs? And like when Cassius like subjected to that sort of shit too, I was like, oh fuck. Like just because he's black doesn't mean that he can rap. Like come on. And then of course he does the thing that they expect him to do. Yeah. And they think it's fucking gold because like that, they don't give a shit. They don't listen to the message of this crap. Like what he did, that's what they listen to, you know, or that's what they know of it. It's so cringy and embarrassing.
I mean, that's at a completely different level, but I feel, especially anyone that has any sort of ethnic background, we've all been at some point where someone's like, even auditions where it's like, they're like, you know, I've been told like, oh, don't try to hide your accent, you know, and I'm just kind of like, this is my accent. I was like, oh, I was like, did you want me to be, did you think I was Mexican? They're like, yeah. It's like, can you do Mexican? And you know, like we've all been in the situations where no matter what, like whatever you are or whatever people think you are, it's like, do this for us, right? Or
spotlights on you, entertain us.
Yeah.
Only that, and I feel like it's probably the most clearest way they could have just the N-word, like over, because it's like in people's minds, and I would imagine like the whitest of the whitest people, like rap for them is probably just the N-word over and over again. Like, so seeing that and then like people like chanting and reacting to it, I was like, that's probably one of the most clearest way Like that could have been the whole movie right there, right? Like that kind of explains what position you're put in, and do you do it or do you not do it, right? And then how do you live with yourself? I guess if every day you have to show up and do something like that. Anyway, so many different levels and so many different ways of pushing the same kind of message or multiple messages.
Yeah, analyzing even more. I've been like going through the movie in my head and stuff while everybody's been talking. It's such a weird roller coaster ride that Cassius
Mhm.
Cassius went through, because now that I even think about it, I'm like, none of it was worth it if you think about it, because he went through essentially how I see it, just because I've done this in the past and I don't recommend it to anybody, but I've done MLM, right? Which is multi-level marketing. And
I thought that was a designer drug.
No. And to me, this felt very, very multi-level marketing, because you start at the bottom, right? So you're just a caller, and you don't even make cash. You make commission. So you have to like really like push it to like make some type of money whatsoever. And then when he actually crosses that bridge, that he actually has a fork, because he can decide to not cross that bridge and like be picketing alongside his friends, and he decides to go and become a power caller. He gets a probably substantial bump of pay, but he's still under the umbrella of these people. So he's technically still this company's slave in a way. To then get to the point of that party, and they go, dance monkey, entertain us. And then when he gives them what they want, the main guy that's supposed to be like, I guess, the top of this multi-level marketing scheme doesn't even really care about this guy, because he wants to turn him into the Martin Luther King horse version to be inside and stuff. So it's like, did all that, and even then when he actually like turned around and everything, that gave these guys millions of dollars and stuff, and at the end, did he kill them? He did something for sure, but was it worth it though, to go through all that stuff to almost become a double slave? Because you went through the corporate system, which is a slave nature on its own, to then go on then they wanted you to put you on the worry-free thing. And it's like, at the end of the day, how many dollars is your soul worth, you know? I think that's like the real question with this movie.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say the guy didn't even care. The CEO guy, I know it was played for laughs, but he literally put the number with fucking a Sharpie pen and with a smiley face on it. Like, he doesn't give a shit.
No.
They don't. All they care about is the zeros. If you're willing to give so many zeros, and you can get more zeros out of that zero, you know.
I think it did matter. I think one of the Detroit was like, I thought you were more interesting before. I think it's huge, right?
Yeah.
We always feel pressure to try and do, we're never good enough. Oh, lights just went up. But one thing that I noticed that I thought was very cool of his character, one of the first things he did when he got all that money, he gave it to his uncle. He like, because I was assuming that it was going to be your typical kind of montage, like, buy that car, buy the this, buy the that. But no, he went first to his family, to his uncle. He knew they were going to take away the house, all that. He put all that. So I think he changed, but he was still trying to be good through that change, right? Whereas in other movies, characters kind of get blinded by the money and all that. He was still trying to do good. He was just maybe mistaken by what good actually was, right? So I think you're saying, was it worth it? And yeah, nobody wants to get turned into a horse, but I think his transition, it's like he didn't change at the end, but at the same time he did, right? Like he became more of a whole, like he either found the purpose, he was able to help the people around him in a micro as well as a macro kind of way. So I do think it's worth it. One question I'm going to throw on there, but I want to hear other people thinking about, was it worth it? The freaking picture of him and the car, or it's not him, maybe it's the dad, that then he had a photocopy, and then every time he would look at it, the person was in a different pose or was in a different angle. Anyone have any idea to that? Anyway, someone else jumped in.
That did throw me off with the picture of, I think was his father, because it's almost a completely different pose and picture, and it's even colored at the end of the film. Like at first it's black and white.
No, it was color at the beginning. The very first time you see it in a picture frame. But
gotcha. So he photocopied it then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That I didn't catch the first time then. I only saw it from the photocopy that he puts up in his cubicle spaces. Mm-hmm. But I guess it is kind of like other than being turned into a horse, it kind of was worth it because like he grew as a person, and he's even accepted from his growth, and he thinks that what he's doing like is for the better. Even when they had montage of him going on all these different news channels, you know, his bandage is now off, he's wearing the cut as a sign of pride, and like, but then life just says fuck you, it's all about the Benjamins, motherfucker, you know. But I feel like him as a person, because he is now better for it and he's still working on it, because he even tells his buddy, it's like only if the union accepts me, but I'm gonna keep on fighting for it, you know. Like the movie doesn't end with him like in a fucking rut. It doesn't end with him not learning shit. It ends with him, you know, yes, being a horse, but it's like, you know what, I'm gonna beat your ass anyhow, I don't care. You know, like I feel like it's still fighting for it. So was it worth it? Probably for the personal growth, but I don't know, man. Getting that horse stick, man. Oh damn. But I'm not gonna lie, I think it, as much as I almost hated the way that ended, I was like, nah, it's a good ending. I would have hated it more if it just straight up cut to him getting the nose. You know, I was like, oh no, now he's a fucking horse. But he's like, oh no, but he's gonna kick Steve's ass. It's great.
Yeah. I think that's the hopeful part of it, isn't it? Like, because it ends with him being a horse, and that's kind of tragic. Like, wow, you know, you got played out. But then I think the hopeful part is that the idea is that you will never play the people out, right? The people will always find a way to win. This isn't our battle to lose kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm on the side of the people. I'm identifying with the people. You know, like whatever happens, you can, you know, hurt us, maim us, mutate us, whatever. But, you know, whatever you do is going to backfire in the end. You know what I mean? Like your karma's coming, corporate elites or whatever. But seriously, I think the picture thing, to me, I felt like that was just sort of like his dad in spirit. It represented, like, you know, maybe not conscious, but like, you know, that past parent kind of conscious, like where like, I'm proud of you, son, or you did a good job. And, you know, he's looking at the dad like every day, like that's the picture frame, like, because he wants to make his parent proud, you know, like, you know, I wanted you to show that I became something, that I made something of myself. And at the end, the dad is proud, like, you know, that's my boy, that's how I raised you. And so the picture of the dad being like very happy at the end, that's his parental figure in the movie. Or even his what do they call that? His well, no, I guess that's not what it is. This is like his Mustafa. You know what I mean? It's not really his sage. It's like his Mustafa, his guardian angel kind of thing.
I totally agree with that whole personal growth. His father being as a spirit guide, and at the end you see color because he like built that confidence he didn't have initially in the beginning of the movie. So I agree with you, Jason. With that.
Cool. Okay, good. I'm not in this by myself. There's something else that you guys have said. You guys talked about how his character, he never really loses his true sense of self throughout the movie. Like, not totally. Like, in many ways he did, but his foundation was so strong. It's what created all the conflict for him throughout the movie and the conflict for the audience, because we don't want to see him completely lose himself or at all, really. And he never truly does. And that's what creates the conflict. And that's what allows him to like win at the very end. The fact that, you know, he was always on the brink of just like completely losing himself to the machine, to the monster, to the money. And he never quite does. His foundation kind of kept him intact the entire movie, which, you know, gets us to the end, really, that gets us to the win.
Was that a Mustang, by the way? I just thought of it. Was the car a Mustang and he turns into a horse? Is that also another level?
I would have doubted.
I don't remember.
In the picture, yeah. What's the dad? What's the car? Was it a?
Oh,
it was
that was a Beamer. That was a BMW.
The muscle car that the picture the dad is.
It was red
with his dad.
Yeah, the picture of the guy with the car, was that a Mustang or was that a?
I thought that was a red BMW. Am I wrong about that?
I think it's a Mustang.
Funny if it was a Mustang.
I thought it was a muscle car, but I just made in my mind the connection, like, oh shit, was that a Mustang and he turns into a horse?
No, there's so many weird things in this movie like that I guess if you have to watch it, because I know I'm gonna have to watch it again, because like Jason said at the beginning, there's a lot of like Easter egg type of things that are missed. I think one of the things I read was also the morning after he got drugged, so he like.
Oh, that was a Mustang. I just looked at it.
Oh, it was?
It was a Mustang. It was like a 60-something Mustang.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, well, like one of the things I read was when that one guy in the car like says like, "Hey, aren't you the guy from the YouTube clip?" And he throws the water at him, and he's chasing him, and then he trips.
Yeah.
Like supposedly, like I read somewhere was like, "Oh, well, that's when you know that he's becoming a horse, because you know when baby horses start to learn how to walk, they trip." I was like, I feel like that's every other creature, but like I wouldn't doubt if that's what they meant too, because like he fell off. Like there was a reason why he fell, and the way that he did fell.
I mean, that's some serious thought, and I don't doubt that they put that kind of thought into the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because he I mean, maybe you're like, he like spit water, or you could be like snorted water also, right, as he was falling. Like, yeah, there's so many levels of, like, the whole football players. Like, I mean, we've barely even touched things. Like, those high school, I mean, we all know people that are still reminiscing about you know, the good old days of, you know, we were the best, we were champs, we were this and that, and they're on the corner. And then, like, yeah, I mean,
they work at the mattress store, right? Is that
that was one of the jokes?
Yeah. And then, like, and of course, all the rioting and all that, like the riot police, like with everything going on now, everything that's happened, like it adds all this new different level and new different things. And it's like, yeah, where are the football bros? Why can't we put them in gear and
get on the line?
Yeah, get in the line. Or the man, like, okay, one thing that totally over my head is when they were doing the protest there at the end, why was everyone wearing the shirt and the wig and with a can? Was there a purpose to that?
The shirt with the wig. Oh, like him, you mean?
Yeah.
I think they just took him up as a symbol.
Okay. So it is just kind of like a Che Guevara or a MLK or whoever. Just like this is the awakening moment.
Yeah,
or
this is
whatever.
the face of the revolution.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And did do that after they made a joke about the Halloween costume, right?
Yeah.
So maybe like instead of like making it as a sign of ridicule, you wanted it as a sign of like empowerment and whatnot.
Or I was the V for Vendetta, right? Mask, the anonymous mask, the whatever. It's just a whole nother, I guess, level of just like, look how silly this is, but it's also, layered. Yeah. All right. I probably need to get off and go to eat. I don't know. I'm always pushing. People always cook for me, so I'm just like
every episode, every week, Dino's like, well, time to eat time.
It's like, I want the lamb that was just grilled. I want my fresh lamb. I don't know, guys.
It's a Thursday lamb.
Sounds like we're about to go out then.
I don't know.
That should be the thing now. Every time you got dinner, Dino, like that's our time to go and have our final thoughts.
Well, we gotta go. Dino's gotta eat. So
I'm in the bedroom and I have the window here, and they come across from the window in the back porch where the grill is, and they're like, and I can hear like the forks and stuff, like, and I'm like, okay, save me some lamb.
We're starting without you.
I'm just glad my cousin's wife is vegetarian, so there's gonna be enough lamb.
Final thoughts, Dino.
Final thoughts for me. I really enjoy this movie. I'm sad that I didn't see it. This came out, maybe I'm completely wrong, right around the time that Get the Gringo came out, maybe, or whatever that movie was about the guy that got into pharmaceuticals.
I think you might be right about that.
And so I feel like I kind of, which I also didn't watch, but I kind of mixed both maybe trailers as kind of one and the same, as being like you're stuck in the crossfires of what, of this white world, if you mean, or
too many black guys in the cinema at one time. It confused you.
I know, right? It's like but basically saying the trailer didn't give this movie any justice whatsoever, and that's what I was getting down to it. But it's a great film. It has so many different layers to it that, again, 2021 is probably going to add something else to it that we had no idea about talking about it right now. So I totally recommend this. Anyone, go ahead and watch it. And yeah, I really liked it. And everyone I watched with it liked it, enjoyed it. Even my 67-year-old white aunt enjoyed it. So
awesome.
There you go. It's a movie even for the racists. Dino, don't forget to send me your movie recommendation.
Yeah. What are the other movies? I was gonna kind of hear what the other ones were to try and throw something in that I think would be a good mix to it. So maybe.
Well, thus far, I did mucho more.
Mm-hmm.
JP did Sorry to Bother You Today. Jason did Paris, Texas. Paris, Texas. And the next one is Naomi's, which is going to be for next week. And that is Fantastic Planet.
Oh, okay. I just got another one of these guys. So I gotta go, but I'll text you my thing, and mucho amor to everyone. Buen provecho. Bye, guys.
Provecho. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Final thoughts. I'll go ahead since I was talking. My final thought is this movie is absolutely incredible. Again, I stand by what I said in the beginning. This movie is definitely ahead of its time. Unlike the movie of last week, which was Paris, Texas, and I said that it had 0 replay value, this one got tons and tons and tons of replay value. I don't know how consecutive replay values. You kind of need some time to decompose and then rewatch it again later. You cannot watch this back to back because then you have too many horse dicks in your face. And it's absolutely incredible. In the movie, you can get a lot of things out of little moments in the movie. I'm sure the more I watch it, the more I'm going to get out of it. And even in this conversation, we barely scratched the surface. There's so many other things we could have talked about this movie. So yes, that's my final thought.
Cool. Final thought. I think there's a lot that we didn't talk about. Like Steve said, there's surfaces yet to be scratched. There's one other thing that we didn't talk about. The organization, the anti-fascist organization, the anti-libertarian, the Left Eye, which is a play. I'm sure it's a play on Lisa Left Eye Lopez.
I was thinking about the same thing too. Wasn't she doing a movement? I'm like, then she just got.
I think that's kind of like a nod to her. You know what I mean? TLC. I think, God rest her soul, or may she rest in peace. But yeah, I think Boots Riley was like a little, nod to her. Final thoughts. Really good movie. Really enjoyed it. I'll definitely watch it again. It's one of those movies that I don't know if I'll watch it by myself, but it's one of those movies that you're going to be with other people. Like, you've never seen Sorry to Bother You. Let's put it in. Let's watch it, because you want to get people's initial reactions. And I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie, but a fair amount of people have, and it's definitely worth talking about. I hope one day that this movie isn't as poignant and important. Hopefully we can get past some of these, social issues where, like, maybe 50 years from now, nobody will need to watch this movie. Or maybe it'll just be a good, historical piece, like a movie like Battle of Algiers, where it's like, 50 years later, we're still kind of going through it. Maybe not necessarily that exact thing, but maybe I'm wrong about that too. Like, take that analogy away. Maybe people are still living that reality. All in all, good movie. I recommend it. I'm glad it was picked, and I'm happy we were able to talk about it. So I was correct.
Final thoughts, JP. Thank you. I appreciate you addressing this into the queue, and we scratched the surface. It definitely deserves a second viewing, just because what the heck did I just watch was my first reaction, and the whole storyline was just like, what's going on? So rewind it several times. I wish I had seen these like other hidden messages that you guys mentioned. This is why I was like still, because I'm like, wait, I didn't even catch that. No. So I'm glad you guys addressed many things. Boots Riley, thumbs up. He did a great job. He transitioned well, activism, comedy, all in one, and it's like a modern masterpiece. I recommend it.
It is definitely for those who are very much into like the absurd or comedy, because I think that's how Boots Riley described it, as like a fantasy type film, because it basically is. Like, it really is. And if people are into that, for sure. And like, yes, there is so much in this film regarding like unions, switch coding, and all that sort of thing that's so like packed into this film, but it's delivered so easily and almost in a simplistic way through its satire. So it's not that hard to follow at all. But yeah, it definitely goes way out there. So I guess for those who are okay with that, definitely would recommend it. Like, just be sure that, actually, no, like, fuck it. Yeah, it's a good movie, and you probably shouldn't know what the fuck happens if you're going to watch it, because I definitely didn't think it was going to go that far at all. It was basically, like, it was a step-by-step of absurdity, but realness all at the same time. So it's definitely good. I'll have to watch it again, definitely. And I do feel sorry that I didn't give this film a chance the first time that it came out. So, yeah, that was our discussion on Sorry to Bother You. It was awesome, 5 stars. I think everyone agrees. And we'll catch you next time when we see Fantastic Planet, right?
Yes,
Awesome.
Fantastic Planet.
So we'll catch you all next time here at Oye Dimano Cinema Club. That was totally intentional, by the way.
Hey, I'm Isaac Valadez from Oye Dimelo Network. I am the head videographer. You can click here to see more of my work and please subscribe.